Imagine walking into a company that looks perfect. The lights are on, the coffee is brewing, emails are being sent. Everything seems normal, but beneath the polished exterior, cracks are forming. Small, almost invisible cracks. The kind most people never notice until it's too late. This is where the smartest executives and investors differ from everyone else. They see what others pretend doesn't exist. A shift in spending patterns. Delayed decisions that seem minor. A subtle change in employee behavior. Pressure mounting in silence, not headlines. These are the 7 recession warning signs every American should know. Because when companies ignore them, it's not just money at stake. It's careers, opportunities, security. And here's the truth most don't want to admit. By the time you hear about recession on the news, it's already too late for the average company to respond. This series is about giving you that edge, because seeing what everyone else misses, that's the difference between surviving a downturn and being crushed by it. So pay attention, because the companies that survive 2026 are the ones that refuse to pretend. The truth is, recessions don't hit suddenly. They creep in quietly, slowly, like a shadow that stretches across the floor before anyone notices. At first, the signs are almost invisible. And yet, if you know where to look, they're loud and undeniable. Contracts get delayed. Budgets are trimmed, not slashed, but just enough to signal caution. Hiring freezes appear in departments no one notices. The world outside still looks normal. The news is cheerful. The markets seem fine. But inside, the subtle cracks are forming. And here's the thing. Most executives don't see them, or choose not to. They say, it's just a temporary blip. The market always corrects itself. That's the illusion. The companies that survive recessions are the ones who refuse to believe the illusion. Let's break it down. Warning sign number 1, subtle cash flow pressure. No one shouts about it. No headline screams it. But when a company starts stretching payment cycles, delaying vendor invoices, or holding back internal reimbursements, it's a signal. Cash is the lifeblood of any business. When it starts moving more slowly than usual, risk is already mounting. Warning sign number 2, behavioral shifts in teams. People who are normally energetic become quiet. Departments stop collaborating. Meetings are shorter. Ideas are shelved and innovation slows. Not because the employees are lazy, but because the culture senses pressure before the balance sheet does. Warning sign number 3, strategic decisions are postponed. Expansions, marketing campaigns, hiring new talent, they all get delayed. On the surface, this feels rational or strategic. In reality, it's a subtle warning that the company is navigating a shrinking margin of safety. Here's the part most people miss. The danger isn't headlines. The danger is what's ignored. It's not a single catastrophic event. It's the compound effect of tiny decisions that seem irrelevant individually, but are fatal together. By now, only the most attentive investors, leaders, and analysts notice. The rest? They celebrate growth. They assume stability. And when the recession finally hits, they're caught completely off guard. The warning signs aren't dramatic at first. They don't appear on CNBC. They whisper. They creep into the routines of every business. Sign number 4, overconfidence in growth projections. Everyone loves a good forecast. It's comforting. It's what boards discuss with pride. But here's the trap. When companies ignore small negative trends and leadership continues to assume growth will naturally occur, that confidence becomes a risk. Budgets are inflated. Hires are made without considering cash reserves. Expansion plans are pushed forward despite subtle market changes. This isn't recklessness. It's psychological denial, a refusal to face reality because the data is inconvenient. The companies that survive recessions treat numbers as signals, not guarantees. They plan for risk, not just reward. Sign number 5, supply chain vulnerabilities. We've all seen headlines about supply chain disruptions, but here it's subtler. Vendors start missing minor deadlines. Deliveries arrive slower than expected. Inventory sits longer than it should. These small frictions compound silently. What looks like normal operational hiccups. Often, they're early signals that the company's foundation is weaker than assumed. And by the time these frictions are visible to the public, the company is already scrambling to rebuild liquidity, trust, and operational stability. These signs, cash flow pressures, behavioral shifts, postponed decisions, overconfidence, and supply chain vulnerabilities, don't create panic headlines immediately. Instead, they quietly reduce options, tighten the margin of safety, and set the stage for failure. The difference between companies that survive and those that fail? Awareness, timely action, refusal to pretend the signals aren't there. The quiet dangers aren't always numbers. Sometimes they live in culture, in behavior, in the small choices executives make every day. Sign number 6, leadership hesitation. Decisions that once would have been swift now take weeks. Meetings are longer, but nothing gets resolved. Ideas are tabled, not because they lack value, but because the leadership team is unwilling to confront uncertainty. It's subtle, almost invisible to outsiders, but inside the company, it's devastating. Every delayed decision compounds risk. Every hesitation pushes a company closer to crisis. Sign number 7, ignoring early warnings from employees and middle management. Frontline workers notice inefficiencies. They see early cash flow issues, missed deadlines, and subtle morale shifts. The ones who survive recessions listen to these signals. The ones who fail, they dismiss them as complaints or noise. It's a psychological blind spot. The louder the success appears, the quieter the warnings get ignored. And by the time the leadership notices a real problem, the cracks have spread too far to fix quickly. These last 2 signs are often the most lethal. They're invisible in spreadsheets, absent from quarterly reports, and rarely mentioned in boardrooms. Yet they are the difference between a company that survives a downturn and one that collapses seemingly overnight. Now you understand why the crash is rarely sudden. It's the slow accumulation of ignored signals, hesitation, and cultural denial. The companies that survive 2026 will be the ones that see the warnings early, act decisively, and never pretend the signals don't exist. By now, the pattern is clear. These 7 warning signs don't scream, they whisper. They hide in the corners of everyday business life, and only those who pay attention notice them in time. Each sign matters because when ignored, they compound silently. Cash flow pressures can spread to all departments. Overconfidence in projections clouds judgment. Supply chain issues ripple across operations. Leadership hesitation slows critical responses. Ignoring employee warnings removes a key early alert. Cultural denial masks the growing risk. Small operational gaps that seem harmless eventually threaten survival. This is why the collapse feels sudden to the public. It's not sudden at all. It's a sum of tiny, overlooked, ignored, and misunderstood signals, stacking over months or years. Companies that survive see these signals, take decisive action, and refuse to pretend nothing is wrong. Those that don't, by the time the outside world notices, it's almost too late. Next, we'll reveal how smart investors and employees can use these 7 warning signs to protect themselves, turning what most ignore into a massive advantage in 2026. You've seen the signs. Now, let's talk about how they play out in real life and why most people never notice until it's too late. Even the smartest companies can be caught off guard, not because the warning signs aren't there, but because they fail to interpret them correctly. The subtle behaviors we discussed, the delays, hesitations, small operational gaps, all compound in ways that spreadsheets and headlines can't capture. A minor supply chain delay today, inventory shortages tomorrow, leadership hesitation, missed opportunities, and misaligned priorities. Ignored employee warnings, blind spots that amplify risks. The key difference? Companies that survive treat these 7 warning signs as actionable signals. They don't ignore them. They investigate, correct, and adapt early. For employees, investors, and business leaders watching this is your advantage. You don't need insider access. You just need to know where to look, what to question, and when to act. Every sign we discuss builds a story that tells you exactly where danger is hiding in the system long before anyone else notices. By understanding these 7 warning signs, you can anticipate what others only see in hindsight, and that difference can save money, careers, and opportunities in 2026. By now, you understand the 7 warning signs. But here's the truth most people don't realize. The signs aren't isolated, they form patterns. It's not just one cash flow hiccup or a single delayed decision. It's how these signals interconnect, amplify, and predict outcomes long before they become visible to the public. Consider this. Minor cash flow pressures in one department ripple through the company, affecting payroll, vendor payments, and operational efficiency. Overconfidence in growth projections leads to ambitious hiring and expansion plans, which, combined with supply chain gaps, creates invisible stress on resources. Leadership hesitation magnifies every small delay, every overlooked warning from employees, until even obvious problems are ignored. This is why many executives say, "We didn't see it coming, but you've seen it coming. You know what to watch for." And that knowledge isn't theoretical, it's actionable. The companies that survive recessions do three things differently. They acknowledge risk before it's obvious. They face reality, even when it's inconvenient. They treat warnings as opportunities, not annoyances. Each signal is a chance to adjust strategy, protect assets, and stay ahead. They prioritize long-term resilience over short-term confidence. Growth is important, but survival comes first. Here's what most people miss. Ignoring these 7 warning signs isn't dramatic at first. It's silent. It's subtle decisions made day by day, week by week. It's the small, cumulative choices that compound into a crisis nobody can ignore. Now imagine yourself watching the news in 2026. Companies are scrambling, layoffs are happening, and the headlines scream, "Unexpected recession." You won't be surprised. You'll already understand why it happened. Because you recognize the patterns that everyone else ignored. And that knowledge, it's power. It's an advantage. It lets you protect your investments, your career, and your decisions long before the crisis becomes obvious. By now, the patterns are undeniable. These 7 warning signs aren't random. They interlock like pieces of a puzzle, and once you understand how, the picture becomes clear. A recession isn't a surprise. It's a predictable outcome of ignored signals. Let's break it down. Every decision that seems minor matters. Every delayed payment, postponed project, or ignored employee insight carries weight. Individually, they look harmless. Collectively, they reshape the future of a company, a market, and even industries. Small cash flow delays in one division, missed opportunities in another, overconfidence in forecasts, risky hires, and overextended budgets. Leadership hesitation, slow responses to market shifts. Ignored employee warnings, blind spots that compound daily. The companies that fail, they treat these signs as noise, dismiss early warnings, and assume that scale, intelligence, or past success grants immunity. The companies that survive, they do the opposite. They study the signals. They question assumptions. They course correct before anyone else notices there's a problem. And here's the kicker. It's not only about companies. As an investor, employee, or even a consumer, these patterns matter to you too. Investors who spot subtle financial hesitations can adjust their positions before collapse hits. Employees who recognize cultural denial and leadership hesitation can protect their careers or pivot strategically. Customers and partners who notice supply chain vulnerabilities or overconfidence in projections can prepare for market disruptions. In other words, knowledge of these 7 warning signs creates a massive advantage. It's not fear-mongering. It's clarity. It's reality. Most people never see it. Most executives don't act. But you will, because understanding these patterns means seeing what others ignore and acting while everyone else is still celebrating growth. By now, you've seen all 7 warning signs. You understand how they quietly emerge, how they interconnect, and how ignoring them compounds risk every single day. But let's be honest, understanding a problem isn't enough. Most companies know something is wrong before the headlines scream it, but knowing without action is the same as ignorance. The truth is, the difference between companies that collapse and companies that survive isn't luck. It's one critical decision or a series of small, decisive moves taken at the right time. Imagine this. A company that notices subtle cash flow pressure acts immediately to strengthen reserves. One that senses employee warnings adjusts processes before inefficiencies spread. One that spots leadership hesitation enforces clear decision-making protocols, ensuring no delay goes uncorrected. These are not theoretical scenarios. These are real strategies that determine survival or failure, and most organizations miss them entirely. By ignoring these signals, companies make the same mistakes over and over. They pretend growth guarantees safety, assuming past success buys immunity. And when the recession hits, the collapse looks sudden, yet it was decades in the making, unfolding silently in plain sight. Knowing these 7 warning signs gives you the foresight most executives wish they had. You can see the cracks forming before others do. You can anticipate challenges, and you can position yourself to benefit, protect, or pivot while the rest scramble in surprise. If you want to see the one move that could actually save companies from a 2026 recession and understand how the smartest executives act while everyone else is still celebrating growth, then you cannot miss the next episode. Click the notification bell, stay tuned, and make sure you don't miss it, because this move will separate the companies that survive from those that fail, and it's something almost no one is talking about today. Tension hook / cliffhanger for Scene 6.